Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick, episode 5 of season 2 of American Crime Story, Assassination of Gianni Versace. Joining us today, we have Ben and Brett and Meredith. I'm Alonso. Don't ask, don't tell. Ben was saying, why? What does that mean?
Yeah.
I have to say, I love this episode as far as capturing that moment of why, you know, that period was so shitty, especially if you were in the military. Like Clinton's half-assed attempt to overturn the ban on gays in the military actually made it worse for gays in the military until we finally got rid of it during the Obama years.
Which was the very next millennium.
Yes.
I would not call. I would object to half-assed, but I would object. What I would agree completely with made it worse and was a disaster.
Yes, no, it was terrible. Because he ran on the idea of overturning it, and then like Sam Nunn stands in a bathroom in a submarine, and suddenly everybody loses their shit. So,
and totally, just not to get too far afield on politics, but it was the first thing he did, and that shouldn't have undermined him, but it ended up massively.
I remember the
first in a series of compromises.
Yeah, that's right.
The chance, don't ask, don't tell Bill Clinton, go to hell. Chance, I remember.
But yeah, it was good. It was certainly good about that. I mean, just the unset. Again, seeing this. Actually totally well-adjusted, together, incredibly smart guy. Think, well, I have no choice here but to kill myself.
Yeah.
Right. That's
where it loses me though is like, what does this have to do with Andrew Cunanan in a way? It's sort of like, yes, the people you murdered are fascinating, but the show's not about them, it's about you.
Or Versace, which we actually got.
Or Versace, whose name is in the title, who finally shows up again in episode 5 after a lengthy absence.
Oh, real quick.
The 90s were bad for gays, and part of the reason was because Andrew Cunanan was running around killing them.
I auditioned for the Richard Schlesinger role and thought I did really well, the interviewer who interviews Jeff Trail.
Oh, really?
So we get to that scene and he asks the first question, on whatever it is, Presidential Order 3160.24, and I was like,
yes,
I know that line.
This is very familiar. All of a sudden.
Take that line.
That guy looked like Schlesinger.
He looked more like Schlesinger.
Well, and I was, as a former editor at The Advocate, after this, like 5 years after all this, it was like, oh yeah, Brendan Lemon, I know that name.
Right, so somebody had to play him too,
Which, if, for those of you who haven't known, that actual Jeffrey Trail did do an interview with 48 Hours. But they changed the dialogue drastically. Like he, the whole thing about like, there are days that I wish I hadn't saved his life. That never appeared in the aired interview. So I found.
But he didn't say that in the. He didn't say that in the interview.
Yes, he did.
Oh, he did say it in the interview?
Yeah, you see it on the VHS tape, and then we see him say it later.
I have such an issue, like, why are you changing the facts of history so much
for
around
expediency
it?
to tell a story.
But there are certain things that I'm like, if you're, like, they even do where they cut to the 4x3, and they kind of have like a grain on it, which I thought was a really great effect, and I appreciate when the show does those things. But like, to change up the truth there.
Well, because fewer people know the nuts and bolts of this as then do the OJ
also,
stuff.
And maybe, and I have no idea, but maybe he also said that to someone,
that's
right?
true.
Like he may have expressed that thought, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to have to have that thought expressed.
I mean, it was very powerful. I did enjoy that piece, as difficult as it was.
I like the narrative device of making this, at least tapping into 2 interviews that you may or may not remember. That was, it is a change of pace from the episodes which I liked more, which were the actual murder episodes. This one is the lead up to the murder episode. There was too long during this one where I was just like, what are we doing? Okay, yeah, we are filling in some historical background here, but it didn't make it clear to me early enough, because I was just kind of sitting there going like, all right, get to something.
I think maybe there's kind of a retroactive poignancy that this guy survived a suicide attempt, survived,
it got
being hounded out of the military, only to get shot in the face by this douchebag. But I will say, if nothing else, Finn Wittrock and Cody Fern
they're great.
Are terrific. And I don't really watch American Horror Story, so I haven't seen a lot of Wittrock. I've never heard of Cody Fern, but they are blowing me away here.
Yeah, Cody Fern is David, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we saw most of him last week, and then we saw
some of him a bit,
and then more of the other. What was the other guy's name?
Finn Wittrock.
Yeah, and they were both really good, and I was incredibly impressed last week. But I saw these 2 episodes in the last, because I was a week behind. I sort of caught up in the last 2 days, and I've come around more to the Alonso way of thinking. I don't know what's happening with the show, and every episode is good. It's well-made television, but I don't like watching it. I feel super sad when watching it. I mean, you know, last week just to see this, like literally maybe the most decent person we've seen portrayed on a TV show, right? Who only wanted to do good and help people and was a little shy, and you know, and had a father struggling to do the right thing, and based on the fact that the previous week he said, you know, I'll call my dad, he'll know what to do. His suggestion that his dad did come fully around, you know, and I just
has a chance to escape, you know, Cunanan in the truck stop and doesn't,
right. So all the and then again this week with these now we're just, you can't help but like these 2 guys. They're great guys, right? And then like this week when we see him come down and he answers the door, just like he's like, hey, and he goes, hey, and I'm like, yeah, you're great guys.
Yeah.
Right? These guys are guys I want to be friends with, and then I'm still not going to know. I know I'm not going to know why either of them was killed, right? Because to your question early on, like, we're not going to get an answer to what motivated Andrew Cunanan, because there is none, right? We don't know, and so then I just feel like I'm watching a show where I just feel terrible each week.
The reasons that Andrew Cunanan did what he did are utterly personal. The themes that the show is trying to create are super historical and societal. And that's kind of the disconnect for me. It's all of this stuff was going on. They are eventually kind of filling in the blanks of like what it was like to be gay in the military in America in the 90s, or gay from a small town back in the 90s.
Or famous and gay and running a big company.
Right.
And a lot of gay people are having a shitty time. They didn't murder anybody.
Yeah, and yes, exactly. And this is a psychotic person who is going to ruin it all. For these individuals who had various levels of success and failure and triumph overcoming like a societal problem. The frustrating part of watching this show is that it doesn't, this random guy that shows up and kills everyone doesn't really mesh into like the thematic elements of the show, to me.
So I think we are starting to see some of that with the whole idea of failure and success, because even when Andrew confronts Jeffrey about going to talk to 48 Hours, and he starts to say, who are you? Like almost like, what have you accomplished? And he kind of cuts back and goes on a different line of thought. And this is something we've seen throughout the whole series of Andrew, he himself just wants to be successful on nothing. Like if he lived in today and age, he'd probably have like an Instagram account and would be really, you know, hitting that up hard. But he is a man who's so self-obsessed with his own self-worth and the worth of people around him. And I think they've done a great job of showing that throughout. And I think like it starts to sprinkle in some of the ideas of what his motivation is that it's such self-loathing and such self-hatred that he takes it out on everyone around him who he feels could be more.
I don't see the self-loathing. I only see this just like nihilistic pathological liar. And I think what they realize as showrunners is that if Andrew just does the same thing over and over again with everyone, just with a different lie. And if they use him too much throughout the episode, it's just going to get frustrating and repetitive. So I guess the way to redeem it is these people, the victims, have so much struggle to overcome and so many pitfalls to look out for. It is that much more frustrating that the one that actually ends up getting them is just this monster who comes out of nowhere and ruins their lives.
It's very nihilistic. I mean, when you think about it, at the end of the story, it's, well, as you said, all these people who have worked hard and are trying to do something, and it's futile what they've accomplished.
I'm gravitating toward the episodes that are good murder mystery, murder episodes.
But at this point, I sort of opened myself to the idea that like the last 15 minutes of this show could maybe go,
exactly.
You know. But at the moment, looking at it, standing this close to the elephant, it's like I'm not.
And if this is correct about what Andrew was, then his gayness, for lack of a better word, has nothing to do with why he killed.
No, he's just a sociopath.
He's a sociopath, and and so what drives that rage is when he's sort of called out on his patheticness, right? When finally people are like, "Hey, man, you're a liar. You're nothing. This is this world, this image you're creating of yourself is a fraud," and then he acts out, and the people who call him out on that, or when he's forced to recognize it, are the gay people he's with. That's why he's a gay murderer.
And David is the one guy who's actually like, you're full of shit, but let me help you. Let's create a thing that's real here and not these nutty illusions.
And there's something good in you. Like there's something good in you. Let's go.
Yeah. Hey.
I know.
What do you want? What's next? What do you want more of in coming episodes? I definitely want to see more Versace.
Yeah. I say more Donatella. You know, that
she's doing such an amazing job.
Yeah, I like the conversations they had. That was because that felt like a real conversation. Like, hey, these people work for you. How much are we going to lose? $1 million, 10 million, 100 million when we go public at on the market?
And again, I think like for the young gays watching this thing, it's like this is 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it was indeed this big a fucking deal to be an openly gay fashion designer in this country.
So amazing. And then watching the Olympics.
You understand his argument. We know now in hindsight that he could have said, none of that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Everybody, they know I'm gay. They know it, and yeah.
But she's not wrong.
No, she's not wrong because you didn't know how it was going to go, and now he could say we might lose 4 businesses, we'll pick up 12 more. Like it's but you didn't know that then. So that conversation I'm super into. So that's what I want.
Yeah, I also just want to say I love the scene where he's like, hold on, let me introduce you to my partner.
Yes.
That sweet moment like really won that episode over for me, which makes me want more of that. Like I'm told that this is the assassination of Gianni Versace. I really do want more Versace.
There's a bit of a bait and switch.
Yeah,
but that's another point though. That again, 20 years ago, that the idea that again a fashion designer could say, "This is my partner for 13 years," and then there'd be this moment. As opposed to, hey, nice to meet you.
Well, he's an advocate for Christ.
Right. And we're watching an Olympics where we're seeing the first openly gay American athlete. And it's just like, what are we? And then you see Johnny Weir.
Johnny Weir wasn't out.
What? How? I just assumed.
Yeah, no, Johnny Weir like dressed like Liberace, but never said it until later. You know, it's insane. I think that there is a story to be told here, but what's also weird that I'm kind of realizing and looking at this in the grand view is if Cunanan had not murdered Versace or somebody equally famous, would we be talking about him? Would anybody care that a gay guy killed a bunch of other gay guys?
No, I think that's pretty easy.
I mean, if Cunanan had killed those 3 gay guys, the cemetery worker, and then another gay guy in Miami, and then gotten caught and arrested or killed himself,
The fact that I learned that he had killed other people besides Versace. Through this show.
Oh no, at the time I remember the whole the cereal in the series.
I thought, and maybe it'll get to it, but I mean, I think the answer is it's not going to. Because how many episodes is it? 8? Yeah, I think.
We're halfway.
I think we're more than halfway. I don't think they're 10. Maybe they're 9. There's
9. They're 9.
So we're 56% of the way done.
Good maths.
Yeah, all 9s are easy. That we're not. There's no police procedural part of this. So I was looking forward to the FBI.
Well, there's the occasional inept manhunt going on.
But I thought that would be a.
Well, if we're going backwards, there's only going to be less of it, I guess.
That's right.
We're going to get to when he's born, I guess. I mean, it's a weird
dawn of the universe.
We're
the tree of life.
It's the story of David's father. Next episode.
No, we never. Here's what Andrew Cunanan never did. Apparently, is went to an optometrist and got another pair of glasses. That was
the 90s. He'd already nailed it.
That was the look.
I had those glasses.
I had those glasses.
Are you kidding me? They were amazing.
All right, if a guy doesn't have 27 pairs of glasses, he's not a real man. That's what I always say.
He might have had 27%.
Or he doesn't work for cable television.
Well, because he's too busy buying $10,000 watches to buy new glasses.
Mr. LensCrafter over here.
All right, so next week we have the week off. For some reason, FX is pushing it off. We don't know if it's because they want to butt up into Getty or Atlanta or something. But anyway, no show next week, so no us next week. But come back in 14 days and we'll talk more.